Mauck Me podcast is on. Okay, so welcome. So every week we're going to meet with some eccentric characters that are doing their own thing. And I am stoked this week to introduce Zack Smith here. Zack, thanks for being the first guest. So I want to explain why we're doing this. And to be bluntly honest, this is kind of selfish on my part. This is an excuse to meet people, peel off layers of the onions, and kind of get deeper into other people's visions, where they're going, kind of get their backstory. And this is going to be a great way for me and all of our viewers to meet people a little bit better. So a little story about me, myself. I farm. That's kind of my day job with my family here in Gaston, Indiana. And over the last 5 years, I started this thing called relay intercropping, putting this stuff out on a social platform named Twitter, a little bit of Facebook stuff, and people recognized I was a little weird. And somehow it has kind of turned into now where I'm meeting some really interesting people. They're sharing what they're doing, and we're coming up with some really cool things that I think Zack is one of the most not only creative minds that maybe we share the same wavelength, but I truly feel in my heart of hearts like what we're working on right now, what Zack's working on, and is the direction of agriculture in kind of a two-way street here. But I think this is going to definitely be something, and I'm on his wagon. I'm on his wagon big time. So Zack, thanks for coming. Let's get to it. So why are you here right now?
Why am I here? I'm here because I've always had an interest, I think probably similar to you, as far as looking at things a little bit differently and not being afraid to go in that direction. And I've kind of had that my whole life. I can think back to a lot of examples where in a lot of ways doing things differently have yielded a lot more for me in life than not. And I've just kind of followed that trail of results, and that's how I got here. A year ago, I'd only talked to you a few times kind of loosely over text, but you know, a year ago we were in a spot where we were looking at some tough commodity prices and outlooks, and we wanted to come up with an alternative to that. And we did a lot of, my partner Sheldon Steamer and I did a lot of brainstorming, and last February we hatched this idea called the stock cropper, and it's been a hell of a ride for the last 11 months.
So stock cropper, as you say, well, you're saying it's the dynamic cross leveraging. Finish it for me. How do you sum that up?
Yeah, so what stock cropping is, this principle is the dynamic cross leveraging of row crops, or think of them as row crop feedstuffs maybe, and livestock. So, you know, when my grandfather and great grandfather were farming, I'm fifth generation now, they had lots more diversity on their operations that were intertwined and interdependent, and we've kind of separated all that stuff. And I want to bring that back. And we did bring that back this year in this kind of dynamic system using the new technology that we have at our disposal. And so it's not like wanting to go back to wagon wheel days. It's going back and using some of the principles that they used that were for free, because that's all they had. They didn't have a technology or a tech fee or a license fee to get, you know, what they needed to make life easier. They had to use what they had. And that's what we're trying to do. Take some of the technology, leverage it with these natural systems that are for free, and hopefully we have more left over at the end of the day for the farmer.
So Zack, I think we're both passionately curious, and I think what's really hard to explain to people is that when you're experimenting, it's not about whatever you're doing in that end game. It's all the things that you observe that you can plug in to your next idea. And I think you've been on this journey here several years, but especially the last few years. You know, you've done 60-inch twin row corn, you've done all these different things, and you were one of the few when I was just starting out. Um, you reached out, and I think you saw what we were seeing is okay. We can get more corn yield if we get more sunlight to the leaves, and plugging in the system. Explain how you kind of got to stock cropper, kind of your previous journey. Explain how this kind of came about there.
Yeah. So this all kind of started about 11 or I think it was about 11 or 12 years ago now. Through a friendship with me I was really interested in strip tillage, and there weren't a lot of people in Northern Iowa where I'm from that were doing it. And I met a guy by the name of Sheldon Stevemer who lives 35 miles north of me, with my farm operation. And him and his brother had been doing it for a while. There were only a few. So we hooked up, and he was a good mentor, kind of getting into that practice where no one else around was doing it. And then from that kind of initial relationship, found out that we were both kind of curious about these things. So he had experimented with intercrop corn and seen those advantages. And then we'd gone to some meetings like Bob Recker at Cedar Valley Innovations had back in like 2011, I think, on the 60-inch corn thing. We were really interested in that. And so we started experimenting on our own. A lot of the same stuff, that you've been posting, your journey, we were kind of doing the same thing, making observations and trying to find like these creative ways. I call them biohacks, right? Of how can we, without spending extra money on things, how can we, naturally utilize nature to maybe give us a competitive edge? And we were trying to do that though in the confines of the commodity system. And the reality was last year, it didn't matter how many biohacks we were going to do. If corn was $2.97 a bushel, you couldn't biohack your way out of that, right? And so that was like, well, we got to really get crazy now. And that was kind of the motivation that drove us and got us in this spot.
So is there a part of you that wishes corn was still $2.97, so it just blew up in the page when you're trying to really show the extreme value of the system?
I don't know that I want to come up. Yeah, I mean, partly selfishly, yeah, it does. It would, because it would make the argument stronger right now, right? I mean, the reality is today when we're filming this, what's cash corn now?
It's about 435.
Yeah, I don't have any corn to sell this year, and I'm sold out of all my beans, so I've kind of given up on tracking it day to day right now. But the reality is we're in a lot different spot, and that changes the dynamics. But I was having this conversation with somebody else this morning. I can't remember who I was talking to, but it's I think we're kind of with the subsidy money and this kind of bump, we're kind of delaying the inevitable. Eventually, we know there's a lot of pressure against what we're doing in commodity agriculture moving forward. And I've always been a guy that's like thought 5 or 6 steps down the road, and that's what I'm seeing and thinking. And I know that this isn't probably going to be the path that has at least a lot of value. There's going to be value for people that want to scale and be a low cost producer, and that's fine. But it's like I said at your field day, there's going to be this divergence in this business. There's gonna be people that if you want to survive, you either have to follow the path of the X9, or you go this other way where you're looking for a value add piece. I'm not saying either's necessarily right or wrong. I just know where I fit into the spectrum and what I'm interested in, and this is the space I'm interested in.
So part of the reason why I named this podcast Mauck Me was because I really get a kick out of the resistance, right? So when you're doing something small, especially, and you're going against the X9 combine, the guy that now has 440 corn and he's making big money, and you're out here in your little chicken tractor pulling that around, and you're finishing a couple chickens or doing a little experiment over here, and you feel like you're farming with an easy bake oven, and it's pretty easy to make fun of. So do you feel that? Do you get much of that? Are people mocking you? And does that give you a high, or does that like give you this sense of motivation, or what's that feel like?
I'm sure there's people that are mocking what we're doing. I mean, especially when we first came out with it, and the reality is I don't give a shit. And that's, I think it's just, I think it's kind of an attitude that you have to adopt, where you let that stuff go off your back. If you believe in the direction you're going, it can't bother you. And so, now I'd be lying if I wasn't say like I'm hesitant at putting stuff out, because I'm a human being and there is that feedback. But no, I really, I mean, it's maybe there for a few seconds, but the reality is that, and you've been a good teacher of this and a good example to follow, in the fact that you kind of preach, you get more back by putting stuff out there, and that's definitely been the case over the last year for me. And just the people that I've been able to connect with all over the country, and some even internationally, and so yeah, there's risk in putting stuff out there, but I really don't care if somebody thinks this is crazy. I think continuing to do the same thing that we're doing right now, with the path I'm on now in the commercial side of my farm operation, I think that's nuts. So
I think the most amazing thing about what you're doing is your excitement. I think that's what's contagious. And you made a video this summer when you first were able to collect rainfall, right? So from a mathematical standpoint, there's finite math. So you figured out, okay, the surface area is like this. You say Sheldon figured out we need 0.9 inches of rain, and it fills it up. And you were out there during a thunderstorm, and it happened. How amazing did that feel when you saw that take place?
It was incredible. I mean, we'd been working for 5 months at that point, from whiteboard to, where we had all these. It's one thing to have all these crazy ideas in a Twitter DM session and put it on a whiteboard, but it's a whole another thing to see it tangible out in the field, like something that most people would say, this should not work and this is nuts. But then when it actually starts to collect, and the math works, and you get that proof of concept. I mean, it was an incredible night. I almost get choked up thinking about it, because Juice was with me that night, and it was an unbelievable feeling of accomplishment, I guess is how I would. And I don't know, we drank a lot of Keystone Light celebrating that night, and just had a heck of a good time. So
and then I saw your next amazing day when it moved, the 20 feet or however far on with your new electric system there. But the thing is, so that's the finite math, right? We figure that out, and you can crank the numbers. You get the edge effect on the corn. The corn made another 55 bushel. I mean, you can go through the details left and right. The animals, you put all that on paper, and it's a competitive advantage, right? And I think this is what people really don't get. They think it's that you're an attention getter. But when you have created what you've created, you have shown people all these different wrinkles of value in putting that together. That's that dynamic cross leveraging. So when you can put that on paper, and now it doesn't matter if corn is $3 or $4, that doesn't either break the bank or make you a little money. How good does that feel to create a system and now feel like, okay, all this attention, this infinite math, these people that I'm now connected with that are going to help me market the animals, help me scale this. How much more of a kind of like a glimmer of hope or a feeling do you have when you're like myself, where you really question the next 5 years and it's, you don't want to just keep investing in a path that you don't feel like it's going anywhere. What's that feel like?
Well, I mean, the first year's been fun with this thing, and the attention really. I mean, it's been nice. I'm like you. I don't think I really care about the attention. I care about the connections that I'm getting through it. That's what I really value, through the whole thing. But it's still scary, I mean, the easy part in a lot of this is done, with the initial idea, and we've got a lot of refinements and things to do, but it is, I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, it is a little bit frightening with trying to figure out the next steps. The next things that have to, in order for this thing to actually become something and be relevant, the hard work is the next couple years. This first year was a lot of fun, but the real work is ahead now, and I'm fully aware of the challenges and the people that do mock me. You know, rightfully so. There's a big hill to climb here, but I like this hill versus the other hill, or the other path, essentially, for what the future looks like on the other side of business.
What's your biggest challenge? What's the biggest thing you need to navigate?
I think the biggest thing right now in scaling it up is figuring out the processing side of the window and accessing the right market and getting this thing in front of the right people, and getting that story and being able to effectively communicate the story of the benefit of having food raised in this system, you know, and you have a limited amount of time to communicate that to a consumer when they're going to make a decision. And we've got to figure that out. That's you know, there's other things we've got to figure out, like with the barn, and those are relatively easy things to solve. In my opinion, I think we're going to have a lot of that figured out, you know, over the course of the next 12 months. But it's the other things that are in front of us: the marketing, the connections, the processing, the outside of the box thinking that it's going to take, because those things aren't just easy switches that you can turn. You know that, I know that. A lot of people in this space already know those things. So, but that's what makes it fun. That's why I get up and start thinking about it immediately at 4:30 in the morning, and you just start churning on it.
What are you turning on right now? Like what's fresh right now? You're talking to someone, you're engaged, and this is just something you're really excited about.
What I've been turning on over the last week here over Christmas is I've been really trying to reach out and partner on the engineering side of things, specifically around the autonomous advancement of what I'm hoping to do this year with the barn. So that was our goal last year. We didn't quite get there. We did get it to walk at the field day on its own with under electric battery power, but really like to get it to the point where it can do that under its own power from the solar panels on the roof that charge the batteries that drive 2 independent drive wheels, so that we can pull up to this thing and chore it in less than 10 minutes and move the barn. And so that you could have something that truly could be, if you could get it to that point, you know, then you'd have something that's scalable where you could have many of these things in a field. So that's one of the immediate things as far as the barn for 2021 that I've been working on.
Gotcha. So what is something just from the simple design or the animals in there that was your biggest kind of hickey or problem that was just the quick, obvious fix for next year?
Well, the biggest, I mean, the biggest thing that was a challenge was having pigs on pasture. You know, in this system, I guess I should explain that if people haven't seen this before. The idea is that you grow the row crops next to this pasture with livestock in a barn moving through. And the idea is that the livestock are there to produce manure that feed the row crops the following year when you rotate and put the row crops where the animals have been. And so if you're going to do that and you're going to row crop it, you've got to have a relatively smooth surface to produce things on. Well, pigs like to root stuff up. You know, you saw that in the woods, you know, this year with your deal. We thought that the movement would be enough, and the movement definitely helped. That's why we never lost anything that escaped from the barn this year. But that's one thing that if we're going to make this truly be a looped system where we're going to rotate back and forth between the two things, if that's going to be the path, that may not be the path, I'm not sure, but in my head right now, that's one of the things that, you know, we're going to have to try to address, either with more movement or ringing of the pigs. We tried that, it wasn't very successful. That's one of the things on my list this winter. So that'd be one thing anyway.
Yep, as they get bigger, they do more damage.
Yeah, it's a linear, you know, damage curve. When the first 90 days, we didn't really have any trouble. And the other thing I would say is, you know, the theory of following chickens behind from a fly control standpoint, that didn't work out really well. We had a lot of flies. We ended up having to put fly traps in the barn to try to control that. The chickens didn't have a lot of vegetation. And so I'm thinking about switching up that strategy and having a separate chicken tractor that goes in lanes at different times and is in sync with the other barn. Again, trying to do maybe like a relay pasturing between those two entities to keep both of them. Yeah, those are some of the ideas. So
Yeah, but it's endless, all the things going on at the same time, and it's such a it was just such a beautiful thing for me watching. I was so inspired because you called me, I don't know, February, and you did it all, like you did it from start to finish. You brought everyone out, and I think the most amazing thing, and I think this is something that I experienced in 2018, was you invited everyone, and you were afraid you were going to fail. Like, you were afraid if that thing just didn't move, it's the dud effect, right? But it did move. And like that, I don't think people, the average person that wants to just play it safe all the time, so they don't experience a loss or that lost feeling, they miss out on how great it feels when it could go either way. And
yeah,
and thank you. I just want to thank you for me, and thank all the people that's followed you this year, that you were just like, it's not, it's not this sense of like, screw the system. It's just like, this is what I'm going to do. And unapologetically, I'm going to explain it. I'm into it. I'm going to make content all the time, explain the thing. And then just watching you persevere through things. It's just, I think people root for you. And
yeah, well, thank you for that. And yeah, it's been fun. The support that we've gotten, it's a driver. It helps because there's definitely, there's definitely days and nights where you sit there wondering, gosh, is this, what's going to happen? I remember the week before the field day, I mean, I was, nervous as all get out on what was going to happen. But it really, if the barn wouldn't have moved, I think at the time it would have been a failure to me. But like, when you look back at all the other things that we achieved,
yeah.
we shouldn't have been able to do in such a short period of time, from idea to like working prototype, crawling across the earth with animals inside it. It was a fun year.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more about just the big picture, right? So you came to the field day, you had your funnel. I saw something this morning, someone shared it with me. A girl talked about, and I'm not getting in the political weeds here at all, but she was talking about vaccines. If we can create a vaccine for this plague in a few months, we've got places in the United States of America where you can't get fresh meat, you can't get fruits and vegetables. I mean, vast, huge areas. And the reason is, it's dangerous to go in there and do commerce, but there's a lot of places where you can only get some Funyuns and some Mountain Dew, and that's not really going to make for healthy kids a healthy health. I mean, what is going on right now, and how can, we're not going to have rows of corn in the inner city, but there's a lot from the people you're intersecting. Do you think about that, and do you see yourself in the years to come maybe trying to put a dent in this?
Yeah, for sure. No, I mean, it's a great point. I think nutrition in our country, and the way that we look at food as this thing that is just cheap and convenient, has had a huge cost. I think that's part of the reason, again, not to be political, but why we've struggled with COVID, is nutrition and just overall health, and like the promotion of that. And so where does that start from? It starts from the ground, right? And I think, there's things that we can do to make our food, more nutrient dense by some of these practices. I've been really interested in soil health and some of these premises. It's got to start there and then build up. And I think if we're really interested in solving a lot of these problems in society today, there needs to be more connection from the farm gate all the way through, and interest in people that are in the inner cities, that are a long ways from where we're at physically, but also just as a way of life, and have interest and understand that we're all connected from start to finish on these things. And so I'm really interested in trying to establish relationships, especially within to the urban, area, because there's a huge disconnect, right? And there's, I mean, if I'm being honest with how ag has dealt with that, it's not been a olive branch. It's been, hey, what we do is right, and we need to teach you about what you really need to know about food. And you know, it's like I said at your field day, like people aren't having that, and that's not. I'm not. Yeah, I guess I'm interested in finding middle ground. You know, because there's legitimate concerns from the ag side. There's legitimate concerns from consumers, and I think the more that we can connect people through experience back to things, and and hear people out and meet them in the middle, and be honest and have that as an agenda, I think that's a powerful thing. So
Yeah. Could you get into the funnel analogy? You know, you had the funnel analogy at the field day, but let me actually redirect this, because I think the best thing of your field day was this. You explained that you were in a band in your younger years. I think you could probably still play, right?
mhm.
And you couldn't just go up there and play your own music. No one would listen. They think it sucked, right? They would keep their keep
Yeah,
doing this until you played Freebird.
right.
Turn around, they didn't think you're too bad.
No, that
So
was, yeah, it's a really similar thing, and like that's what I'm saying. Like this pattern of like doing things and thinking a little bit differently. You know, when I was 20 years old, I wanted to be in a band and I wanted to be successful, and I didn't know how to break through. And there was a lot of local music in Ames where I went to school, but we couldn't get in. We couldn't get the respect of the local music scene with just doing our own thing, and so our own music. And so I remember it was a Saturday afternoon. I was sitting in my dorm room. It was snowing out, and I was pissed that I just wasn't going anywhere in college. And I'm like, I got to make this happen. So I went uptown and I handed out press kits to every bar, and we ended up getting into this place called Lumpy's, and dive bar with where people pissed in the corner, and it was terrible, you know. But they gave us a chance, and we went up, and we didn't just play our own music. We sprinkled it in with the stuff that people wanted to hear and what they could connect with, right? And so, you know, you had options as a band. You could do just the principled thing, or you could like try to connect with people, and that's what we did. We tried to mix the two things together, and where the local musicians couldn't break into the big bar in town, we were able to play covers, and all of a sudden we did well, and they invited us up, and now we were doing our own stuff along with covers. And you know, we essentially, you know, there for a small period of time, we did really, really well in the small Iowa music scene, I guess. But it was from not being afraid to meet people in the middle. And sometimes you got to play Freebird. You don't want to, you know, but sometimes you have to. So
I just remember you at the concert, just right in front of the speakers the whole time, just taking it all in.
yeah,
so,
so
so let's talk about what's next. You know, what's some of these. You don't have to talk about how you're going to change stock cropper, but where you want to be in 3 or 4 or 5 years.
yeah, I don't know. It's a great question. My wife and I were talking about that last night. This thing is, I almost hesitate to say, because I still don't know if we really know what it is or what it should be. I like these principles that we're on, but there's still a lot of discovery to take place and finding out what this combination of things is. Ideally, in my heart, if I had to say that right now, because my wife pinned me down asking the same thing last night, I would say ideally we could come up with a system that we could start to scale and get consumer interest from people that were interested in acquiring meats produced in this fashion, direct, to consumer, and get it to the point where we could have processing partnerships that would align with that path, where we could actually branch it out and have multiple farmers under this umbrella and have, you know, a brand of things where we could have, you know, this standard set of values, how we could communicate that, but at the same time having it at the forefront of communication with the end customer and that relationship back to the farm. That's paramount to me. And then, you know, beyond that, I've got some axillary ideas around experiences, you know, further that we can talk about too. But you know, in a perfect world, in 5 years, we would be able to hopefully get this thing to the point where it could be replicatable and bring more people and give other farmers the path where instead of chasing the X9, they could do this and still have a good living and maybe make their community better in the meantime.
I think the hardest thing that when I'm looking at this idea of stock cropping is you got to hold the hand of your hat right there, right? So you got the conventional farm, number 2 corn, APH, crop insurance, all this stuff. And then you've got the consumer, which like you alluded to earlier, what's it called? Advocating has been, hey, this is what we do. This is why we do it. We're good at it. You should like it. You're trying to mix these two worlds. Do you think we can continue to hold the hands of both the community and the big scale farming and mesh something into the future, or do you have I guess I don't know
I
where
don't
I'm
know that
going.
you can. Yeah, I know what you're asking and getting at, and I think that is going to be a choice. But the thing that I'll call BS on, you know, I mean, and I see it all the time with this idea of advocates, and it's important. I get that it's important to stand up for the way of life and stuff, but you know, the way of life right now and what is happening, and if we're being honest about what's happening in rural America, is that we're losing a lot of people and we're losing them fast, and it's going to speed up. It's like you want me to talk about the funnel? That's the funnel. We're going to whittle a lot of people out of this business, and there's not going to be a lot of folks left. And you know, it's fine to, you know, it's like this last fall, like all the big YouTubers and stuff, like when are you going to get the X9 so we can see the demo of that, right? And everybody wants to see that, you know, but what that represents is, you know, just the elimination of how many more people or operations. And we kind of worship that thing of scale, and it doesn't make sense because at the other hand, we talk about the value of farm families and small communities. Well, we're slowly kind of or, you know, cutting the bank out from underneath. And I wish people would see that more on those levels, as far as kind of the juxtaposition of that, and realize that, you know, it's okay. I guess if that's the decision that this is okay, then that's fine. But to me, it's not fine. I want more people involved in this business, and I want to have neighbors. I want to have neighbors that give a hoot about me, work with neighbors, have school systems filled. And I don't know, that's going to be a struggle in the next 20 years. And we see it live out in front of us every day in these parts, but it doesn't seem to sway the big block of this business too hard. So that's not a popular opinion, but it doesn't mean it's maybe wrong. So
we talked a couple weeks ago, you're a butcher. You butchered your chickens, you butchered pigs every year, as you got like this ongoing deal. Do you think that there's going to be this push for people want to go back and have more of a primal skill set, where you know, you see it now with all these different cubby holes we can go on YouTube. You see these bearded butchers. You've talked about teaching more people to fish. How would that work? Like, how are you envisioning a teaching class of spreading that skill set out? How would that work?
yeah, so I'll back up and give a little back history on that. I think after COVID, I think people are going to be really hungry for stuff that's real. And I think we've taken a lot of stuff for granted for a long time. But yeah, I think this idea of doing tangible things together in community is going to, I'm hoping, surge back. So yeah, 10 years ago, we started a tradition of gathering friends and family together every fall and butchering. And, it was kind of happened on an accident, but we slowly brought more people in, and it's just become this really cool communal experience. And I can't describe it, but like the feeling of camaraderie and almost, dare I say, brotherhood of people that come together and doing something tangible to nourish your family and enjoying it, and the craft of making your own sausage and your own ham and smoking, and the fact that it, like, a lot of people want convenience and stuff, but man, there is really something from the time of starting to stop and of a 3-week period of a process and really appreciating what you have at the end of that. And it's really been a fun thing. And it's kind of it's gotten to the point where we have more people interested than we can handle in it. And so, yeah, I do think, one of the ideas that I've been working on over the last couple of weeks is trying to figure out, is there something there with that, where that's an avenue to market animals through, to give people an opportunity to come in and learn that process. And once you teach them how to fish or teach them how to cut meat, maybe that's something that it becomes a tradition. And, instead of worrying about like, how do we like get all these spend $50 million on a processing plant, why don't you just teach people to be the processors, Now, I don't know how big that scales. I know a lot of people will say, well, people in the cities aren't going to do that. There's people that are interested. And I think if you opened that up and gave them an opportunity and could see how much fun it is, I mean, it's a hell of a good time. It's really developed into something neat. And I think there's something there. And that's a great way to build that relationship. The relationship I have with my friends that I do that's never going to go away. We're bonded. So
I think when we kind of open up the restrictions a little bit, I think there's going to be this scurry for people to get to know that kind of stuff for the next one. Cause I think that fear is going to be in people's mind, and there's, people want meat, they want bullets, they want guns. And I don't know. I think there's going to be these weekend universities where people like our age are going to go off to do things for a couple of days and come back, and you start doing that multiple times, and now you feel like you can survive. I don't know. I do.
Yeah, and it's not that. I mean, a lot of people I think it's really inaccessible. I mean, we killed 3 sheep last week, and we literally used number 9 wire, had a rafter, and a knife and a saw.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
How cool is sharpening your knife all the time? I don't know. I get this.
Yeah, I've actually gotten good, with the sharpening rod now, doing it. I'm, for the record, I'm not a great butcher. I've done it enough. I'd like to actually become a lot better. I'd love to take an apprenticeship for a year if I have time to go and really master the skill. But maybe I'll have to be an intern at Muncie Meats next year.
So I want to just give you the reins. You go wherever you want. We got 10 minutes, whatever, to go. What do you want to talk about, Zach?
I think, one of the things, you kind of put me on the spot. One of the things I would say is just encourage.
Isn't it?
Yeah. But I was in a band for a long time, and I'm usually pretty good at that. I think one of the things I would just say is, there's other people out there that are watching like what we've done, or they've watched the stuff that you've done, or other innovative guys that are sharing things on Twitter. And I would just encourage folks not to be scared, and really get outside of the box, and not be afraid of putting stuff out there because what comes back to you, like I said before, it's, even with me, like I've been worried about how much to share, and you've hit on that stuff a lot. But, not sharing something sometimes could be not connecting with the person that has really the idea that makes everything happen. The whole reason that we came up with this idea is because we were working with multiple people. It was, our friend Lance Peterson that had the idea of putting a barn instead of soybeans or barley in between for the intercrop thing. You know, it was because we had a network and we were, you know, pitching this thing out. And I think
So
in
how
this,
much do you think people don't understand? I know I love my mom to death. I love older people, but they still think there's like a gatekeeper about everything. They think you have to be picked. You have to be chosen. You have to win. Everything is like Star Trek. How many stars did you get? Like, who else is doing it? And you can do whatever the hell you want to do anymore. Am I wrong? And people take offense to that. But you and Lance and Sheldon came up with an idea. You made it happen this year, and look at everything that it's created. Look at all the people that showed up, that drove multiple states. You know, Keith Thompson drove to my field day, and thinking about the people that, you know, kept their eyes open and just went 10, 11, 12 hours just to come see you and support you. And then seeing some people that were at my place, at your place, and that support, man, you just, it's an amazing thing. But
yeah, we would have had that if we just would have just did it on our own, and we're better for it because, you know, like I never would have met Rick Bieber, you know, like Rick's our field day, and like, you know, I learned more from him the night before in 2 hours than I learned all year, you know. And so the spider web is important, and I've learned that. I don't know that I was there, but I've had to learn it, you know, kind of the hard way. It's, I think that's what I would say, because I know other people are out there. I know other people. I mean, I was kind of a shadow watching, you know. I mean, we were shadow watching the stuff that you were doing, you know. We'd reached out one time, I think, and that was it. But I think that's a limitation of our business, and of people being private and not wanting to appear boastful or anything. You know, it's just kind of the culture, and I think sometimes it holds us back sometimes. I think from kind of connecting and gaining and collectively moving together, and but. You know, I think it's kind of back to what I said with what we've evolved into as a business, where this is ultra competitive. Like, we don't want anybody to know our edge, right?
yeah.
Like, you know, so that they can, I mean, you know, and with commodity stuff, it's like the edge of like maybe a secret to produce 3 more bushels of corn. Like, and I look at, you know, the difference of the things I used to think were important around trying to chase 5 bushels, and then, you know, the math that is behind this system. And I'm like, you know, I came to that realization even through the summer. You know, the whole reason that we wanted to grow corn and the livestock together was, well, it'd be awesome because we'll be able to grow 350 bushel corn, and that'll really get people excited. And when, you know, I just finished a video that's going to be coming out, and maybe, I'm not sure if it'll be before or after this podcast, with the economics. I figured out in a really quick hurry, it doesn't matter if you have 500 or 600 bushel corn. The corn is nothing. And the corn is the feed stuff. You value add the corn into the animals. That's where the value is created. And, you know, I didn't even have that thought when I started. I was thinking like everyone else, I just want to grow 300 bushel corn, and that'll solve everything for me. I really don't think it does. So.
And it's that vulnerability that allows you to connect to all these people that is going to add the value of the livestock. If we can get this thing optimized, or I keep saying we, but you, and I think the big key, when I was talking to Vance Crowe this past winter, I think we're going to begin to sell our food before it's even raised. And I think with what these things you did this year with the cameras, Facebook Live every night, I think there's nothing stopping you to gain momentum and scale, and everything is already got a home before it walks off that farm. And
yeah, that was, I mean, that was our intention last year. And honestly, I didn't have the time with everything I had to really worry about. We were so worried about the proof of concept. But this year, that the marketing piece is definitely, you know, that'd be powerful. Imagine having everything pre-sold before it goes. And then from the consumer standpoint, the consumer being able to connect, you know, to to that animal right off the start with the camera system, you know, and you know, and I told this story too at the field day about the two-way transparency, right? Of, you know, animals get sick, right? And even in the stock cropper, you know, I think a lot of people want to think that our animals would never get sick. Well, we did have a pig this year that went down and got a strep infection. And, you know, I think if a consumer had a pig pre-ordered and could watch and connect with that animal and see that story and see their pig down, and if they're just all against antibiotics, I tell you what, if you got to watch a pig suffer and not being able to get up, that's a whole different thing about saying, well, maybe I'm not going to worry as much about giving one single shot. It's not like we're sitting there dosing the thing all the time, but just to get that animal back up and going, just like people are taking the COVID vaccine now too, right? You know, so I think that's the type of stuff where if you can give, you know, I think you've talked about, you know, like your hog barns that you have, I mean, you can't show anything in there. And I think that's a mistake. If you want people to believe in what you're doing, you've got to be able to pull the curtain up and show them. And I think there'll be mutual benefits or mutual understanding from that. So, yeah.
Love everything about that. So we give you the last word here, Zach. Thanks for coming on. We're going to meet up this weekend and kind of hash it out, whiteboard it. And I'm really, really excited about that.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it too. I guess to close out, just thanks for letting me come on and be the first one to party with you on this new platform. I hope it goes well. I'm looking forward to see who else you bring on. You know, what I would say, just on my own shameless plugs here, if you're interested in this project, you want to reach out to me, you can email me at thestockcropper@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter @ZebulusPrime. Or go to our website, thestockcropper.com. We're on Facebook or Instagram. We're on all those platforms. And if anything that I said tripped your trigger and you want to reach out and visit, I'm an open book. So don't hesitate to do that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens here in 2021. Oh, one last thing. As far as what I was just talking about, our cameras with YouTube, one of the things we need to be able to stream live to YouTube this year is I need 1,000 subscribers, and so does Jason, by the way. We're like 15 subscribers apart, so go on our YouTube pages. And I don't want to monetize it. I just want to get to that point where we can turn the live stream on and have that functionality for our barn this year. So if you could do one thing, go to our Stock Cropper YouTube page and give that a subscription. I'd appreciate it.
Awesome. And what is Zebulus Prime? I don't think I ever asked you that. What is that? Is that something I should know?
That was my alter ego when I was in the band back in the day. That was what they called me. And I don't know, when I started Twitter, I never thought anyone would care who I was on Twitter. So I've made that my handle, and I just haven't. I guess it works now because it gives somebody, you know, if I'm doing a podcast, it's a good conversation starter. So.
Gotcha. All right. We'll catch up soon, Zach. Thanks for coming on. All right.